We went our separate ways after a very satisfying lunch. The sky, however, saw fit to dull in color rapidly once we were finished. A deep and active gray stirred up above.
The fog appears to be rolling in, class, so it's best we clean up our mess and return for the day.
Everyone went to do as instructed. I hope I can pack everything away quickly enough. I reached out to the baskets before me to set about packing everything away. Hey, we're on the right track, though, baby.
Are you all right, Miss Whiteley?
Akichi, what brings you over here?
You, as it so happens. Since I was fortunate enough to partake in some of your food, I thought it only right to assist in clearing up. That and leaving you on your own concerns me.
Why would it do that? What? Why would leaving me on me lonesome concern you? Why, thank you.
Not at all. I simply wish to repay you for the meal.
We began packing everything away.
Incidentally, Miss Whiteley, do you cook often?
No, I don't. Our mansion chef does the cooking.
I see. In that case, I assume you made today's Scotch eggs.
How does everyone know what I've cooked? My! You're right, but how could you tell?
Compared to the other foods, their sizes and shapes were somewhat, I suppose, varied. I also caught you peeking at others who were eating them as though to observe how they liked them.
Of course you caught me.
I did, but after knowing you for some time, it isn't particularly difficult to notice such things.
Well, it's not often we're able to enjoy a picnic together as friends. It was even a first for you and Kobayashi, wasn't it? I wanted it to be a fun experience for everyone. I couldn't stop planning left and right for it.
Then I should say you've done a fine job of it. They were delicious, I might add.
Were they?
What do I have to gain by lying? I hadn't expected to try your cooking when we lunched, so it was a pleasant surprise. Thank you.
You're very welcome. I'm glad you enjoyed them. Aw, you charmer. Akichi averted his eyes from me, a small pinch of warmth across his cheeks before resuming his end of the cleaning.
This fog has become rather severe.
It certainly has. We should hurry to the carriage before it gets any worse. I rushed to gather everything up, but as I started to walk, I realized Akichi was no longer anywhere to be seen. All you boys are the worst. Akichi? I spun my head around in hopes of spotting him, but I had no such luck with how limited my vision was. I wasn't fond of being alone like this. I could feel an inexpressible sense of nervousness well up within myself. Akichi? Where are you?
Miss Whiteley!
I heard his voice from far away. I rushed in the direction of the voice, as if to shake off the unease that fought to take hold of me. Soon after, I'd caught sight of a faint human-shaped silhouette in the fog. Is that you, Akichi? Wait for me! But he showed no signs of responding. Perhaps he couldn't hear me. I stepped closer, and yet with every step I made, the silhouette seemed to slip farther. My apprehension grew stronger, but standing in place would do nothing. I decided to continue following it. Alright, I think we can skip ahead for a bit. Let us take the back alley, always. Stay away from the slope, for whatever reason. Just stay away. I wasn't expecting there to be more to this. What was the last thing that happened? I could hear two men having it. Is it two different men? Colonel Morin, if it's you again, I swear.
You, kept me.
Who was that? What's... I tried to get a good look at what was going on from the shadows of the alley. It wasn't the clearest picture, but I could make out two men.
Here is what you were promised. Did you think me?
What are they talking about? I was hiding enough of a distance away from the men that I could only hear parts of their conversation. I desperately strained my ears in hopes of making out more.
Huh. You think this is funny?
The man's patience had been worn to a thread.
No! Don't! Mr. Porlock!
Porlock?
What now? Did something happen?
Tension thick as the fog was stilted momentarily by the sound of someone calling out to a man whose clothing reminded me of a merchant's. Do we get to see said merchant man? Should I leave? This feels as though I'm witnessing something criminal. Am I a fool? I'm in danger if I stay any longer. I must leave! Something was very wrong here. I wanted to wash myself of this before things grew worse, but an underlying fear rooted me to the spot. But what if this is a crime? Is it right to turn my back on it? I hesitated. Huh? Then the air had been punctured by the shriek of a bullet. It was so unexpected that my foot hit a wooden crate on the ground next to me. I wasn't in their sights, but the noise made was much too loud for it not to catch their attention.
Is someone there?
No! Please don't notice me!
Playing hard to get isn't going to do you any favors, you know.
Each step moved closer and closer to me. The fog would make finding me a trying task, but that didn't make it impossible. I couldn't hide from him forever. They'll kill me. They're going to kill me! I took a rigid, deep breath to control my nerves.
Shh. Quiet now. You're safe. I only ask that you keep still.
My breath was held as someone approached me from behind and placed their hand over my mouth. Moments later, I heard what must have been a pebble rolling in a completely different direction. Oh, it's you! So you're a Porlock. You have a gigantic scarf. How long is your neck? Like, you gotta have a giraffe neck to have a scarf that big? Goodness gracious, man.
I surely hope you don't think I'll let you escape.
He followed the sound of the pebble, his footsteps becoming quieter and quieter. Danger now less so, I began to think of how the gloves I felt and voice behind me were familiar.
Try to keep your voice down. They're likely still close by.
I nodded to indicate that I understood. Pendleton? Why are you here?
Discussions can come later. For now, we leave with due haste.
All right. I was more than willing to let Pendleton lead the way. Even after plenty of time had passed, the fog stubbornly continued to hang over London streets. A heavy air hanged above the two of us as well. He's angry with me, isn't he? I'm certain of it. Not a word had been said since we left the site of our meeting. It was only once we'd come to the main road that Pendleton finally spoke.
This should be far enough.
I braced myself for the incoming lecture, but no such lecture arrived. Instead, I heard the sound of someone I knew crying out from far away.
Miss Whiteley!
Akichi!
What a disaster! Whatever were you thinking?
His breathing was erratic and his forehead covered in sweat. It took but a single glance to know that he had been desperately searching for me. Forgive me, Akichi.
Please, be more mindful of your own actions in the future. Please.
I will. I truly, truly am sorry for worrying you.
Pardon, but this hardly seems the place for lengthy conversations. Let us retire to the carriage. We can discuss all that happened there. And should you like, Akichi, we can also escort you to the academy dormitory.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so far Pendleton seems nice towards our boy. We all climbed into the carriage and set off straight away. Pendleton's sigh was the first thing to break yet another lengthy silence.
Oh, my lady, I'm going to be very frank with you. For heaven's sake, do something about your unfortunate habit of sticking your nose into danger.
If I may, sir, I believe I share some of the responsibility for her actions. Had I not lost her in the fog, she wouldn't have acted as she did.
You're not to blame for a single thing, Akichi. This is my fault for running off.
Miss Whiteley.
I'd overheard something I fear I must discuss, however. Something involving a man named Porlock.
Porlock?
My lady, where did you hear that?
Pendleton's expression changed upon its mention. It was earlier. There was a man with me in the fog by that name.
Porlock is the name of a well-known cryptographer in the criminal underworld, but I cannot imagine he would be anywhere but a cell.
But I heard his name. I can't be mistaken, can I?
Is it not possible that he escaped?
No. As far as I'm aware, he's still locked in the Tower of London.
Tower of London really needs to get its security checked.
You're absolutely certain you didn't mishear, my lady.
But... Could that have been a mere illusion in the fog? The more I tried to follow that line of thought, the more fear wrangled me. At a certain point, I could only shake my head to rid myself of anything more. A part of me knew that would do little to help. I could feel a mist begin to settle over my heart, one that seemed even less likely to clear than that of London's fog. Alright, that's the end of that. So, Porlock. Colonel Morin is taking a much-deserved rest. Let's see what happens now. His abduction. Well, this is a new chapter. Several days had passed since the picnic in Hyde Park. Who was it I saw in the fog that day? For all the fun I had, I cannot recall it now without that one detail. Oh, why am I spending my hard-earned day off dwelling on this? Best to put it out of mind and turn my attention to merrier thoughts. Perhaps enjoying some tarts and tea was just what I needed. However, just as my plans were taking shape, they shifted to something else entirely. Pardon me, my lady. 2 of your friends have come calling. And they seem to have expended no small effort in arriving. She had the right of it. Both Watson and Kobayashi were huffing and puffing as though they had no wind in them to spare for rest. Well, 2 halves of 2 duos. Hello? Good morning. It isn't often I see you 2 in each other's company. Is something the matter?
Emily! Do something about Akichi!
Emily, you've got to stop Holmes!
What? Halt! Time out! What is going on here? And why does Holmes need me? Sorry, already distracted from Akichi. Watson, explain. What? Emily! They cried my name with such boyish panic that I listened eagerly for an explanation. The story was this. Holmes and Watson had been charged with investigating a series of abductions that had been staged throughout London. Akichi and Kobayashi, meanwhile, were on a leisurely tour of the city. It was simple chance that saw the 4 of them happen upon each other.
Naturally, the abductions became a topic of conversation between detectives.
Right along with how the nobility are being ransomed for all they're worth.
It's been difficult for the Yard to obtain any solid leads, despite the abductions growing in frequency. The ringleader, whoever they are, has done a clever job of covering his tracks by hiring the poor to do his dirty work. At any rate, the topic moved to whether any nearby locations were suspect.
Which then turned into which local shops had the best food.
You know the place near to here that specializes in meat pies? That was mentioned, of course. So much flavor and practically a steal at 5 pence each.
Daydreams of cheap, savory meat pies filled our heads, and next thing we see, Holmes is eager to make a row, and Akichi has his blade drawn.
Huh? What? I'm still not following. How did you go from meat pies to Holmes and Akichi going at it?
The last thing we wanted was to turn a bad situation worse. They were so focused that they seemed to forget about us entirely. We didn't know what to do.
That's when I remembered you lived right around the corner.
I'm, not certain I understand why you would come to me.
Hit us like a bolt of lightning, though. If there's anyone who can sort them out, it's you!
But how?
We think, if it's no trouble, you would be better than us at peacefully stopping them before they maim each other.
You are both guys. Just tackle one of them each, and you're done. Or step in between or something, you cowards. Getting a lady to do your dirty work. Just because they both love me is not an excuse to get me involved. Still not entirely grasping this strange affair, I told Alicia where I was going and set off. Apparently I'm needed. I followed the boys to the ever-bustling Kennington Road. It carried a vibrant energy that inspired smiles and exploration, but as we stepped off the main road and into an alleyway, it was as though the whole of the atmosphere turned. There's Holmes and Akichi! This does look terrible, and it's about to get worse. Akichi's sword howled downward but sliced little more than air, for Holmes sidestepped the blow and made ready to plunge his fist into the foreigner's belly. Reacting with practiced haste, Akichi brought the hilt of his blade up to block Holmes's strike, but no sooner had the blow been parried than Holmes grabbed the sword's guard, twisting it in such a way as to, by means of discomfort, force his opponent to disengage. Man, fists against sword, that's crazy. I mean, that's basically what Watson and Akichi did last time, but still. Their battle played out before my eyes, each advancing then retreating with calculated intensity. They both look so serious about this. How could this happen?
Why would Holmes fight barehanded? Has he gone barmy?
Holmes is no amateur with his hands, but I suppose it's a bit much against the sword.
This isn't the time to be impressed. We need to stop them. They've both backed off a few paces. Shan't have a better chance than this. Without much in the way of forethought, I shouted. Wait! My goodness, the options. Akichi, probably. Wait, Akichi! Okay, that was good. Does this mean that Holmes is, like, also the Mr. Celia girl in this route? Good grief, Holmes.
Miss Whiteley, what are you doing here?
Akichi had been fixed on Holmes in a steeled gaze till he heard my voice, which inspired nothing short of befuddlement written upon his face. Haven't you heard that two wrongs don't make a right? I stepped between them. I don't know what happened, but fighting in an alley isn't what will solve it. You're schoolmates! Settle your differences amicably!
Fighting? This is a simple training bout.
In an alleyway? Pardon? What do you mean?
Akichi mentioned his skill in Eastern fencing, so I wanted to see what all he's learned.
I, too, was fascinated by Holmes's considerable expertise in Western martial arts, and as such had wondered if we might spar. And I must say, I'm genuinely impressed, Holmes. Your offensive stances proved quite difficult to read at times. Our match gave me much to consider.
With a flick and a twist, Akichi returned his blade to its sheath. I was wondering if you guys were just sizing each other up. As far as skill goes.
Likewise, your fluid motions kept me guessing as to what your next action might be. You're a first-rate swordsman. Did you have an instructor?
Indeed. My master is back in Japan.
Was I imagining things, or was there some hesitation?
And yourself? Did your boxing come from your father?
The fundaments, yes. The rest I learned through expounding on the basics and experimentation. One cannot surpass another by imitation alone.
It fascinates me that your father serves as your peer in detective work and your instructor in the martial arts. And yet you drive to master and refine your skills beyond the tools provided. You're a perfect model of the Western mind's dogged temperament.
Dog? Woof?
Akichi began to scribble his findings in his notebook. Kobayashi, standing beside him, appeared to be at a loss upon a word he did not quite understand.
Being dogged is something like being determined. That's in a good sense. It can also mean being so severely single-minded that it becomes a bad thing.
That's a new one.
That said, Miss Whiteley, I was no less taken aback by your recklessness. Neither of us were expecting you to step in the middle of our match.
Yes, but I didn't want either of you to hurt one another.
It was a simple sparring match. We would never do such a thing. Learning to control one's own strength is an essential element of one's studies.
He speaks rightly. Your fears were misplaced, Miss Whiteley.
Ah,
You were being pretty dogged too, Emily. You were so set on stopping the fight that you damned the consequences and stepped right in the middle. That's single-minded if I've ever heard it.
Now you've got it! It's not out of the common for her to throw caution to the wind, but even I wouldn't dare to step between those two.
Well, obviously, because you ran to get a girl to do it for you. Neither of you are paying me a compliment, I hope you realize. Besides, this mess was due to your misunderstanding, not mine. Both grinned with wild innocence, unaware of the trouble they contributed to the scenario. If only I could share the feeling.
Well, we'd best be on our way. We have little time to spare for a case that needs lengthy investigating.
If you didn't have the time, then why spar at all?
Emily, you have to understand that some battles call out to a man's soul.
Oh yes, it isn't right to interfere in a battle between two friendly chaps, you know.
The two of you are literally the worst. Hang it all! You said the very opposite at the mansion!
Did we? Well, the meat pies they sell at that shop over there are always a treat. I'll give you one in return for sweeping this under the rug, alright?
What? Where's my free meat pie?
Kobayashi, we've already had some together.
Oh, was hoping it slipped your mind.
How could I forget when you ate beside me?
I think I'm starting to ship Watson and Kobayashi. I accepted the meat pie, at least some small token to have lent purpose to this entire episode, and bid farewell to Holmes and Watson. When did he have time to buy this? It does look delicious, but my frustration is putting a damper on my appetite.
It's best to accept gifts with grace and gratitude, Miss Whiteley. Gifts of food contain the heart of not only the giver, but those whose hands prepared it also. Letting it go to waste would be courting divine retribution.
Me? Arouse the wrath of God? I would never do such a thing.
Then you'll eat it. If you don't want it, then I do.
Only a shameful glutton would cozen food from another when he himself is well fed.
What shall I do with this meat pie? Well, Akichi wants me to eat it, so I'm gonna eat it. You're right, Akichi. I ought to be more appreciative. I took a bite of the still warm pie, and what a bite it was. Mmm. Watson was right. This really is delicious. This boy falls in love over the funniest things. Like, wow, the way she eats meat pies is just like the best. Akichi? What is it?
Nothing. I was merely observing your reaction.
She's pretty even when she stubs her face, isn't she?
Wow, Kobayashi just calling him out.
Of course not. Stop spouting nonsense, Kobayashi.
Whilst they continued their dispute, I blissfully finished the remainder of my pie.
Well, Kobayashi, let's be on our way.
Of course. You were touring the city, weren't you? If you would like, I can...
It is kind of you to offer, Miss Whiteley, but I can assure you we'll be fine on our own.
Will you? But you didn't let me finish what I was going to say.
I believe that rather than showing us around, you should consider how to broaden your own horizons. Sipping tea and sampling confections is an indolent waste of a perfectly useful day, is it not?
What? How did you know?
Given what I know of you, I considered how you would be most inclined to spend your time. It wasn't difficult.
But be that as it may, taking tea and cake does not constitute indolence.
He hit the nail on the head.
If I may offer a suggestion, why not salve both heart and mind by spending the day with a good book? There so happens to be a bookshop just down the road, in fact. Yes, this may be precisely the thing for one prone to leaping before she looks.
Akichi gestured in the direction of a shop a short walk away.
This country's books contain myriad expressions and opinions, many of them highly informative. To read the writing of another is to commune with them and attempt to understand them. It could rightly be considered a form of training in itself. I'm certain you will come to understand the importance of doing so.
Perhaps, but my offer still stands, Akichi. I would be delighted to show you to all there is to see.
You're a genuine soul, to be sure. Your offer is appreciated, but we must decline. It's only by viewing with our own eyes, going where intuition leads us, that we shall be able to learn more.
Very well then. It was a polite refusal, yes, but still a refusal. My reaction must have shown on me, for Kobayashi piped up to soften his partner's words.
He may not sound it, but he's tickled pink 'cause of you.
I am not!
Akichi! The detective turned and left with a flush to his cheeks. Yep, definitely tickled pink.
Ah! Wait for me, Akichi! The nerve! I've got no clue what goes on in that head on his. Hope he hasn't been a bother, Emily.
He hasn't. Not at all. I fear more that he finds me too unreliable. He once scolded me for sleeping during lessons. What if, to his estimation, I was not one to be relied upon? What if, just what if, I amounted to very little in his eyes?
Doubtful. He does love to give a good tongue lashing, but it's more about him than the other person. It's in his nature to be stubborn, you see. He can't bring himself to admit that he doesn't want to impose on you.
Is that truly all?
You'll see it yourself with more time. He's an agreeable sort once you get to know him.
I was then left behind with a smile and a chipper goodbye. When alone, the botherings that struck me imposed twice as much than they did when I was with company. The fact still remains. I am unreliable to him. I should very much like for Akichi to accept me kindly. I know he's as agreeable as Kobayashi said. Akichi's diligence was something to be admired, but it could also be seen as a curse. It was born out of an obsession with being perfect, which, no matter the strain it placed on his back, meant carrying the full weight of his burden. It was my hope that I could be someone worthy of sharing that weight. Hope is nothing without action. I must put in the work if I want him to come to rely on me. The first step would be to visit the bookshop Akichi recommended. I passed a gentleman aided by a walking stick along the way. Nothing unusual on its own, but it was curious to see a man of his age with one. He's quite young to have need of one. He must have suffered a terrible injury. This was but a passing thought, for he was out of my mind entirely by the time I entered the shop. Well, you wouldn't have mentioned it if it wasn't worth noting. Edgar Allan Poe's The Murders in the Rue Morgue would be a smart choice. It would be a good starting point for his C. Auguste Dupin character. Oh, but this collection of short stories has The Gold Bug, which played a major role in the popularizing cryptography in fiction. No sooner had I entered the store did I find myself captivated by the wealth of literature around me. So captivated, in fact, that after agonizing at length over which two books to buy, I resolved the issue entirely by purchasing both. Well worth it. I can't wait to return home and get
You idiot! Are you trying to get run over?
Oh, my goodness, you really don't look well, sir.
Forgive me, sir.
Out of the road with you! You're obstructing traffic!
A cab driver was fuming at a man lying fallen in the middle of the street.
Of course. Please, just a moment.
He's the one I passed earlier. Ah, and he's dropped his walking stick. I hurried to him to quickly alleviate the situation, picking up and returning what he dropped whilst he managed himself. Here you are, sir. This is yours, isn't it?
Indeed it is. You needn't have gone to the trouble, miss.
Even when the walking stick had been restored to the man, he was unsteady on his feet. Let's move him off the road.
Excuse me, miss.
Come, I shall escort you to the curb.
That really isn't necessary, I assure you.
Necessities may be discussed once I see you to safety. Supporting him as best I was able, we made our way from the center of the road.
What a kind thing to do. I must find some way to thank you.
Nonsense, sir. How is your leg? I did notice you had some difficulties with it earlier.
It's always been a problem, I regret to say. Yet it brought me to you, so perhaps there was some good to it after all. Might I ask your name?
Me? Emily Whiteley.
Whiteley?
And may I ask yours?
It's Windsor.
Then, Windsor, were you going to the bookshop as well?
No, as it happens.
His manner and words both reflected a degree of anxiety to them. There was a pause, a vague stutter, a sharp intake of breath, and finally an answer.
In truth, I've been sent to fetch, well, you, Emily.
What? But I was never told of this. I'd informed Alicia where I was going before I departed and nothing more.
The request came from her, as it happens. Rather, she relayed the message after hearing from your butler.
From Pendleton?
Precisely. He would have come personally, but there was some unexpected business to attend.
How strange when I'm so close to the mansion.
It was requested I find you urgently, which led to my rushing here, which also led to the unfortunate circumstance you found me in mere minutes ago.
Pendleton is quite a fright when his anger is roused. If Alicia conveyed even half of it, then I can see why the man would be compelled to hurry. Well done, Windsor. You found me, so all is well.
You really are too kind, Emily.
Shall we make our return?
Of course. Right this way.
I followed Windsor as he continued at a measured pace. We're so dead. We made our way along the street until, in an otherwise empty back road, we found a carriage awaiting our arrival.
There you are. Step lightly, if you please.
A man with an unusually thin frame smiled warmly as he extended his hand. You don't find any of this odd? Of course. Thank you. Yet I was stopped just as I went to accept his hand. Ah! A certain someone grabbed my opposite wrist, bidding my jumping nerves return rapidly to the source. Oh, thank God. Thank you for being here. You saved me. Akichi? What is he doing here? It wasn't long ago that he left. Why is he so short of breath? Is something the matter? I could only return the interruption with an expression of perplexity, tilting my head as though the motion would add clarity to his intentions.
Miss Whiteley, the carriage is here for me.
It is?
The carriage Pendleton arranged is just outside the bookshop.
Are you certain? But this gentleman said...
This gentleman and his companion were mistaken. Isn't that so?
Oh, what a mess this is. He is absolutely correct. I apologize yet again for the mistake.
But I've never seen you or Kobayashi travel by carrot.
Miss Whiteley.
Oh! Oh! Hold on, I gotta get a good look at this. Ooh. You don't mess with that guy. That guy look at you, trying to hurt his girl, you run. Akichi drew me closer to him.
Your confusion is quite reasonable. For the present, I would only make plain that I would never do anything to invite misfortune to your doorstep. So please, take me at my word. I implore you.
His tone was of the utmost seriousness. His earnest lingered in the space between us, small as that space was. All I could do was silently nod. And as I did so, Akichi released his grasp.
You possess a steadfast tendency to act without thinking. It would behoove you to exercise more caution.
No, sir, I'd be obliged to look after that sword for you. If you would.
This is a katana. Handle it with the utmost care.
Akichi handed over his weapon, sheath and all, to the man. Man, that couldn't have been easy. After doing so, for whatever reason, he was swift in the manner he took my wrist again to pull me away from the carriage.
Ah! Akichi!
I voiced his name. He said nothing. Without another word, he took what was to have been my place in the carriage and was gone. Oh no, he's gone! Gone! Just like that! No explanation. I stood in place, ever perplexed as I was before, if not more so.
Hi, Emily! There you are!
Hello again, Kobayashi! What a coincidence to see you so soon. Akichi was just...
He was here?
Just a moment ago. A carriage arrived to pick him up.
I knew it. He let himself be abducted!
Abducted? What do you mean? But he arrived only as I was about to board. Is he playing the hostage in my stead?
That ass! He always tells me not to do anything without speaking to him first, but he can't do the same for me. What's that? A suspicious chap has caught his eye. Off he goes in the blink of an eye. Yes, let's forget everything he's told me. Come on, Emily. We're going after him. I'll give you the details later.
All right.
My apologies for disturbing you when you are clearly occupied, my lady. Alicia apprised me on your whereabouts, so here I am. I see, however, that you are in the midst of something or other.
I might have turned tail to avoid Pendleton due to the lectures that would no doubt followed in his wake, but his appearance just then could not have pleased me more. Pendleton! Your timing is perfect. Lend us that carriage.
I was hoping you'd furnish me with an explanation before all else, but time does seem to be of the essence. If you must, please, mind your step. The ride may be a bit rough, so do hold on tightly or you may bump your head.
He set off that very instant in pursuit of Akichi.